I am from Norway, and I have been making animated films since 1980. The first years I made more cartoon-like films, mostly for children. But these last few years I've been going in another direction. So I've been doing more experimental stuff. Yes, the film is based on paintings. It's actually painted under camera, and I just shot it frame by frame. So during the painting process, and that resulted in a kind of time lapse of making paintings. But these were very short in a way, so I used programs to extend these short clips, so they become more fluently and longer. And so after that, all these clips were assembled in the editing program and layered, so I could have some of the paintings on top of others, and seeing through some of the colors, mostly black or white, were the base colors. So yeah, it's built up of several tracks in a way, on top of each other. Yes, it's different techniques I used. What we call modern painting techniques. I used mostly acrylic colors and used rollers and brushes and all kinds of things to make it, and hair blowers with the thin paint, blowing it, and also something called a pouring technique, where you put different colors in a cup and turn it upside down and let it float out. Yes, took me about 6 months to make it. Well, I didn't work about 4-5 hours a day, maybe, for 3 months for the paintings, and afterwards for the editing and putting it together. Also 2-3 months, 4 months. 4 or 5 hours a day. Yes, I worked alone all the way, except for the music that was made by a rock group that also it's quite experimental. So they made the soundtrack especially for the film. After the film was finished and edited from me, they got it and made the soundtrack for it. Yes, well, yes, I would not say too much about what I wanted to say. I had an idea, of course, how I built it up and things I put in it, but I think it's meant that the audience shall also find out themselves if it is about something or if it's just colors floating around. Yes, moving painting, generating feelings, and you can just watch it and let your mind flow. Maybe you will make a story out of it. We often do. If you see something abstract, we'll find a meaning. So, but different people make different stories. I have my story, but you may have another story.
Once upon a time, Yes, I was making a film up in the Outer Hebrides in Scotland on a little island for a commission I was making for a company group called the Wapping Project in London. They had commissioned me to make a film in relation to United Kingdom leaving the European Union. So when I was up in Outer Hebrides, my idea was to film someone trying to map the landscape. So they had a very big pencil and they were drawing directly onto the land. So while I was filming that, which was a short film with no dialogue, with a performer, with a dancer, I had a lot of footage. And then when I made that film, and then I realized there was another film there, and I started to look for archive footage in relation to the English language and how the English language is derived from lots of different languages, and how integrated we all are in this part of the world in terms of our history, and then how one country then has a dominance over another country, and how these lines are artificial in so many ways. So I was trying to look at it from just try and look at it from a different, wider perspective. So filming high up, looking down, someone was very small, then the pencil is very big, then a single word, it means something in another language, but it, you know, so I was isolating and lifting out big, small, yeah, all that kind of thing to examine the yeah, a bigger picture, I guess, of what borders are and why we have them. I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not so sure if it's united. I mean, I grew up in Northern Ireland, so that caused a lot of, I mean, that little part of the United Kingdom caused a lot of trouble over the last 50 years. And, you know, so the Brexit is going to create more problems there because over the last 20 years, the border between the north and the south has been a sort of like a soft border. It's not a hard border, but now with the south of Ireland staying in the European Union and the north not, then because they stay with Britain, then that's going to cause issues again on that border. So, and with Scotland also, they're not happy they want to stay in the European Union. So there's a lot of friction. Yeah, a lot of people, yeah, it's definitely not so united at the moment. Yes, and that archive footage, it's from the 1930s, and it's before the Second World War. It was sort of like a British propaganda film, and it was made to show how Britain had connections all over the world and how their colonies were connected and other parts of Europe. So they were describing how all the different words in the language came into use to be used in England. So the reason for that film at that time was to encourage more people to stay on the same side as them in the war, in the Second World War. So they were promoting Britain as wonderful, sort of benevolent place. So it's interesting for me to see how that's changed over the years. So all those people who came from the colonies, all those people who came to live here, are now, the new migrants are being told they can't come, they're not wanted. Whereas in years gone by, they wanted them to come to work here. So I just find it interesting, how that changes over time. But yet it shows how connected we are in these islands. We have so many connections because it's a small part of the world, but yet the British colony, the British Empire thought it was the best, thought they were the biggest. And now, they're only a small country. Okay, yeah. The technique is sort of like a collage. I bring in lots of different source material, and I work with the sound directly as I am cutting the image. So my sound influences the image, and the image influences the sound. I don't do it separately. I do it all together. And I just build it like I would a collage, really. Yeah, I do all the sound myself, and the sound is very important to my work. And I sort of get the rhythm of the film through the sound. Yeah, it's a very instinctual process, and I like to layer different levels of images on top of each other. But essentially, I would say it's a collage film. Not too long. Maybe 2 months or something. But yeah, a couple of months.
Yes, the film is done with hand-drawn animation, done with watercolors, frame by frame, and it's mixed with archival footage. So it's got different textures of materials that give the image different textures, and so it's quite a long process. It took like a year to make, and that's basically the process, and it's all around issues of constraint. So it needs to feel quite claustrophobic, and then and moments of release all around either political or personal subject matters of things that constrain you, or borders, or personal situations and relationships. So there it was important to have the feeling between like absolute claustrophobia and the need to release from it and to break away. So it's jumping from one way to another. Some of it comes from, I started off using a very well-known scene from a film that is 8.5 of Fellini. At the very beginning, he's trapped in a car, and he's asphyxiating inside the car, and he's banging against the windows. So I used that scene as like the main scene to start, but I turned it into animation. I drew it. But I kept some of the sounds, and from there, I used some archival footage of animals in zoos, particularly one in a zoo in a mall in Thailand, where it's a mall that has like a zoo inside with these animals that are absolutely depressed. And so I used that footage. And then, but I also used some early moving image, like the last scene is from Jules Etienne Marais. So I also use that. And the main thing is the soundtrack is all breathing sounds. So I go from like liberation of like wind, like super fast wind, to asphyxiation where you're like, so all those sounds were also coming out from different films. The main ones also from Space Odyssey. So I basically took from a lot of films that I remember scenes of asphyxiation and constraints, use some of the sounds, sometimes the footage as base for the animations, and then a lot of the archival footage, the marais I got from an archive in Paris, and then the animals from the internet.
Emilia, ¿has visto otras películas del festival?
Me gustó muchísimo el programa y el concepto del programa, el ángulo político de todas las películas, y también vi la del Brexit.
Ok, aquí está Mary, la directora.
Sí, muy interesante. Yo vivo en Londres.
Este año hemos tenido como esa línea conceptual para algunas de las actividades del festival, como esa línea del audiovisual que tiene discursos muy políticos. Nuestro país y Latinoamérica y el mundo en general andan en situaciones fuertes políticamente y hemos considerado que es bueno como integrar estos contextos políticos y hacer una observación de como de las artes audiovisuales que están como inmersas o que quieren como abordar esas temáticas.
Exactamente. Me gustó muchísimo el programa.
Emilia, te podemos hacer también una invitación y a todos, por favor, si me pueden ayudar con la traducción. Como en esta línea que les cuento que tenemos como de observación y de investigación del audiovisual con discursos políticos, tenemos algunas actividades como talleres y charlas durante el mes de septiembre y pues ustedes también son bienvenidos a participar en ellas. Todas estas actividades son en línea, así es que es como conectarse en algunos momentos y ser parte de ellas. Entonces, bienvenida tú y todos los demás que me oigan y que estén como dispuestos o interesados.
Gracias.
Yes, it was. I think it was very interesting listening to the others talking about their films. So thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you, Thor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.